The Supreme Court has just issued a 6-3 ruling that gun control advocates are already calling the most dangerous Second Amendment decision in American history. And millions of gun owners in states like New York, California, New Jersey, and Maryland still do not fully understand what this means for their rights right now. Look, I spend hours every week digging through court decisions, so you do not have to. But this one is too big to stay quiet about. Before we go any further, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Why? Because what I am about to explain directly affects your ability to legally carry a firearm in states that have been limiting your rights for decades. 90% of gun owners still have no idea how deep this decision goes. I do not want you to be part of that group. Subscribe now, and let's break this down. Here is what just happened, and I want you to see the full picture. In the landmark case, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in a decision that shook the entire foundation of gun law in the United States. 6 justices voted yes, 3 voted no. The impact of the ruling is that significant. The case began because New York had a law requiring citizens to show what the state called a proper causa before they could receive a license to carry a handgun outside their home. In simple terms, that meant you had to prove to a government official that you had a specific and special reason to carry a firearm. Simply wanting to protect yourself was not enough for New York. You had to convince the state that your reason was good enough. And if the official reviewing your request did not like your explanation, the answer was no. End of story. The Supreme Court said the system was unconstitutional. Completely finished. Done. Over. The 6-3 majority ruled that the Second Amendment protects your right to carry a firearm in public for self-defense, and the government cannot require you to justify that right to an official before exercising it. That alone is enormous. But here is the part. Most people are not talking about. The ruling did not just strike down New York's law. It completely dismantled the legal framework courts across the country had been using for years to decide whether gun laws were constitutional. Let me explain that, because this is where things become even more important. Before this decision, courts used a 2-part test to evaluate firearm regulations. First, judges would ask whether the law even affected Second Amendment rights. Second, they would ask whether the government had a strong enough reason to justify the restriction. That second step was the problem. Because under that approach, judges could decide that the government's interest in public safety was important enough to limit your rights. That gave courts enormous power to uphold almost any gun restriction they personally believed was reasonable. The Bruen decision threw that entire test in the trash. The court said that from now on, if the government wants to restrict gun rights, it must prove that the restriction is consistent with the historical tradition of firearm regulation in the United States going back to the founding era. That means the late 1700s. If a similar type of law did not exist in colonial times or shortly after the founding, there is a strong argument that it cannot exist today. That represents a massive and fundamental shift in the way gun laws are judged in court. Now let me give you a hypothetical example so you can see how this works in practice. Imagine your state passes a law banning a certain type of semi-automatic rifle. Under the old test, the government could argue that public safety justified banning it, and many judges would agree. Under the new Bruen standard, the government has to show that a similar restriction existed somewhere in American history during the 1700s or 1800s. Every one of those cases is now being argued under the historical tradition test that Bruen created. Some of those cases will eventually reach the Supreme Court, and when they do, the same 6-3 majority that delivered the Bruen victory will likely be the justices deciding them. Let me be real with you for a moment. Right now, 73% of the people watching this video are not subscribed to this channel. That means 3 out of every 4 viewers could completely miss updates on these upcoming cases. Join the gun owners who get this information first. These are the legal developments that truly matter. Hit subscribe right now and become part of this community. Let me give you the 3 things every gun owner should take away from all of this. First, know your state's current permit laws. Even though Bruen struck down a May issue restrictions in several states, many local governments responded by passing what are being called sensitive place laws. These rules designate certain locations as off-limits for carrying, even if you hold a valid permit. Parks, public transportation, churches, bars, and even areas like Times Square in New York have been listed as sensitive places. Courts are still deciding which of these designations survive under the Bruen standard and which ones do not. You need to know the current rules in your specific state before carrying anywhere. Second, understand that your permit from one state might not be recognized in another state the way it was before. Reciprocity agreements between states are shifting right now because the permit systems themselves are changing. What was true last year about which states honored your permit may not be true today. Do not assume anything. Always check before crossing a state line with a firearm. Third, and this is the one most people completely ignore, pay attention to what your state legislature is doing in response to the Bruen ruling. Several state legislatures have been passing new laws at a rapid pace, specifically designed to work around the decision while still restricting gun rights as much as legally possible. Some of those new laws may hold up, and some may not. But if your state has passed new gun restrictions in the past year or two, there is a strong chance those laws are already being challenged in court, and a strong chance they could change again before the year is over. The legal landscape is moving faster right now than at any point in the past 50 years. The decisions being made in courtrooms today are going to shape gun rights for the next generation. What you know, and when you know it, could make the difference between legally exercising your rights and accidentally violating a law you did not even realize existed. The clock is already ticking on several of these court decisions. Subscribe right now, because my next video will break down the most important pending cases, what the expected rulings may be, and exactly what those rulings could mean for your rights the moment they are decided. So here is the bottom line. The 6-3 Bruen decision fundamentally changed how every gun law in the United States is evaluated. It ended the era where governments could limit your rights simply by claiming a public safety interest. Now, they must demonstrate that their restrictions have roots in American history. That shift is still moving through every level of the court system right now, and the results are continuing to change the rules for millions of gun owners across the country. If this video helped you understand what is actually happening, share it with every gun owner you know. This is information many people are not hearing anywhere else. Hit subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update when a new ruling is announced. Leave a comment below and tell me which state you are in. I read every single one, and your state may be exactly what I cover in the next video. And as always, remember that this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. For guidance specific to your situation, please consult a licensed firearms attorney in your state.